16 to the 3/4 times 8 to the negative 2/3. 16 to the 3/4 is 8. 8 to the negative 2/3 is 1/4. And 8 times 1/4 is 2. So 2 is 16 to the 3/4 times 8 to the negative 2/3. Right, let me just move that because that's going to frustrate me seeing that. Okay. Factorize completely 18x cubed, take 2x. We factor out 2x, so we get 2x brackets 9x squared take 1. Apply the difference of two squares, so we get 2x times 3x take 1 times 3x plus 1. So to factorize 18x cubed, take 2x completely, we get 2x times 3x take 1 times 3x plus 1. Simplify root 50, take root 18 plus root 8. Root 50 is 5 root 2. Negative root 18 is negative 3 root 2. And root 8 is 2 root 2. So, in total, we get 4 root 2. Okay, so root 50, take root 18 plus root 8 is 4 root 2. Rationalize the denominator of 4 over 3 take root 5. Okay, multiply the top and the bottom by 3 plus root 5. And on the bottom, we'll get 4. And on the top, well, notice that the 4 on the top and on the bottom will cancel out, and so we get 3 plus root 5. So 3 root, rather, simplifying 4 over 3 minus root 5, we get 3 plus root 5. Projectile's height is given by h equals 4t minus t squared minus 1. Find the projectile's height h when t equals 0. Okay, so that amounts to solving 4t minus t squared minus 1 equals 0. We negate everything for ease of calculation. So t squared minus 4t plus 1 equals 0. Okay, so you can't factorize that. Okay, so what's underneath the square root sign? Or the discriminant rather? 16 minus 4 times 1 times, that's another one. Okay, so 12. So 2 root 3. So 4 plus or minus 2 root 3 over 2. So 2 plus or minus root 3. Okay, so for a projectile whose height h after time t is modeled by h equals 4t minus t squared minus 1, the time when h is equal to 0 is 2 plus or minus root 3. Hello. State the coordinates of the maximum turning point of the curve y equals 10 minus 6x minus x squared. Okay, so we're going to use the line of symmetry, which is minus b over 2a. And so we're going to have minus negative 6 over 2 times negative 1. The negatives will cancel out. So that'll be 3. So negative 3. Let x equal 3. And then you'll find the coordinates. So it's for 10 minus 6x minus x squared. So that's 10 minus 15 minus. No, wait. That's 10 plus 18. 10 plus 18 minus 9. So, is that right? Well, the beauty is we can actually just do it again. Okay, so find the maximum. Find the maximum, wait. Find the coordinates of the maximum. Or was it the turning point? Well, they're both the same anyway. Find the coordinates of the turning point of the curve y equals 6 minus 10x minus x squared. Okay, so use minus b over 2a. Okay, I don't trust this now. There we go. Find the coordinates of the maximum turning point of the curve y equals 10 minus 6x minus x squared. Okay, so minus negative 6 over 2 times negative 1, so minus 3, so let x equal minus 3, and 10 plus 18, which is 28. 28 minus 9, 19. Okay, so negative 3, 19. So the coordinates of the maximum turning point of the curve y equals 10 minus 6x minus x squared is negative 3, 19. The equation 2x squared minus px plus 8 equals 0 has exactly one repeated root. Given that p is less than 0, find p. Okay, so apply b squared minus 4ac. So square negative p and subtract 4 times 2 times 8. So subtract 64, so p squared minus 64 has to equal 0. And therefore p is equal to negative 8 only, because p has to be negative. So the curve 2x squared minus px plus 8 equals 0, rather, the equation 2x squared minus px plus 8 equals 0 has exactly one repeated real root, for p being negative, if p is equal to negative 8. Solve the equation x to the 4 minus 5x squared plus 4 equals 0. Let y equal x squared, so it becomes y squared minus 5y plus 4 equals 0. Then y minus 4 times y minus 1 equals 0. So y is equal to 104. So x squared is equal to 104. So x is plus or minus 1 or plus or minus 2. So x is plus or minus 1 or plus or minus 2 in the case where x to the 4 minus 5x squared plus 4 equals 0. Find the coordinates of the points where the line y equals 2x intersects the curve y equals x squared minus 3. Set them equal to each other and then solve. So 2x equals x squared minus 3, so x squared minus 2x minus 3 is equal to 0. So x minus 3 times x plus 1 is equal to 0, so x is negative 1 or 3. And if x is negative 1 or 3, then y is negative 2. So the line y equals 2x intersects the curve y equals x squared minus 3 at the points negative 1, negative 2 and 3, 6. Find the set of values of x. Find the set of values of x which satisfy 12 minus x squared is greater than 0. Very well. We'll factorize. Now, we know that this is an upside down facing parabola. And so it's going to be the open interval, the finite open interval. So we can just solve like an ordinary quadratic and just use the roots there. So we can just say x squared at x minus 12 is equal to 0. And then we can just say x at 4 times x take 3 is equal to 0. So negative 4 and positive 3. So x strictly between -4 and +3 will do. So to solve the inequality 12 minus x squared is greater than 0, we just need to have oh, we dropped it. Did we? Well, we just need to have x strictly between -4 and 3. Yeah, that's fine. Find the value of k for which 2x at ky equals 5 and 4x takes 6y equals 7 have no solutions. Find the value of k for which the pair of equations 2x at ky equals 5 and 4x takes 6y equals 7 have no solutions. They'll have no solutions when they're parallel. And so I just need to find the gradient of the second equation, which is a linear equation, and make sure that the first one is equal to that. Okay, so for 4x minus 6y equals 7, we say minus 6y equals minus 4x plus 7. And then we could do minus 4 divided by minus 6, so 2/3. 2/3 is the answer to that, and that's what we need it to be equal to. So rearranging things, ky equals negative 2x yeah, that's right. Okay, so ky is equal to negative 2x plus 5. So the gradient would be negative 2 over k. And how to get negative 2 over k equal to 2/3? Well, you need negative 3 as your value of k. So we believe that the pair of simultaneous equations 2x at ky equals 5 and 4x takes 6y equals 7 have no solutions when k is equal to negative 3. How many points x, y with strictly positive coordinates satisfy the two inequalities that x plus y is less than or equal to 4 and x is greater than or equal to 2x? Is that right? No. Try again. How many pairs of coordinates x, y with strictly positive integers as coordinates satisfy x plus y is less than or equal to 4 and y is greater than or equal to 2x? Okay, so I can see it. I can see the region. It's a triangle region. How to actually do this? Now for x plus y is less than or equal to 4, we can visualize y equals negative x plus 4, and that's very easy to visualize. But really we're saying y is less than or equal to y is less than or equal to x plus negative x plus 4, and so it's going to be every point underneath that triangle. And for y is greater than or equal to 2x, it'll be every point above that line. Okay, so I can visualize the points. And we could think about where they cross. So let's see, so 2x is equal to negative 2x equals negative x plus 4. So 3x equals 4, so x is 4/3. That's where they cross. Okay, so that means if they have to strictly be positive, then hardly any do. We have 1, 2. And 1, 3. And 2 doesn't work. Two doesn't work, does it? No. Because then you have 2, 2. Alright, so I believe it's just them. Okay. The curve y equals 1 over x is translated by the vector 2, negative 3. And then it is stretched by a factor of 4 parallel to the y-axis. State it's... Okay. The curve y equals 1 over x is translated by the vector 3. It is then stretched by a factor of 4 parallel to the asymptotes. State the equations of its asymptotes. So its asymptotes are ordinarily the x and y axes. In other words, y equals 0 and x equals 0. Then, after the translation, they move Yes, I know what happens after the translation, but what happens after the stretching? Stretching by a factor of 4. I mean, that just means putting a 4 on the numerator. Nothing else. It doesn't affect the asymptotes, does it? Okay. So what really happens? Move it 2 to the right. Okay, so we need to put in x minus 2 on the denominator. And then put a minus 3 there. It's just simply x is equal to 2. Now, alright, so we're very sure that the vertical asymptote is just x equals 2. Oh, no, that has to be kept in our head. X equals 2. But we're not too sure what happens. I just cannot see how it would affect it. How could it possibly affect it? I don't think it would. Alright, so I'm gonna place my bet. The vertical asymptote, that's going to move 2 to the right. So we're going to have x equals 2, and the horizontal asymptote is going to move 3 units downwards, so it's going to be y equals -3. Might be simple, but I just don't. State the exact number of points where y equals x to the 4 minus 2x squared plus 1 intersects the x-axis. Let x squared equal z. I mean, no, rather, 0 is equal to x 0. Right, drop. No, that's actually fine. That's actually fine. Okay, so 0 equals x to the 4 minus 2x squared plus 1. Set x squared equals z. So 0 equals z squared minus 2z plus 1. So z minus 1 times z minus 1. That's interesting. But minus 1 to the power of 4 is just 1. And then the square of minus 1, that's the same. So 1 minus 2 plus 1. So that should work as well. I see what you're doing. So I think that the answer is just twice. Okay. Hello! Okay, so I think that the curve y equals x to the 4 minus 2x squared plus 1 intersects the x-axis twice at -1 and 1. And I think that's a trick question. But the point 4, -6 lies on the curve y equals f of x. State the corresponding point on the curve y equals 5 minus f of 2x. Okay, so doubling the argument. Brings it closer to the origin. So it becomes 2, -6 now. Then negate it. Okay, so it'll be 2, 6, and then you have to add 5 to it. So it'll be 2, 11. So if 4, -6 lies on the curve y equals f of x, then the coordinates are the image of that point on y equals 5 minus f of 2x should be 2, 11. All right. Now the part that everyone dreads. You're going to do it. You have to get feedback. You never know where the errors could be. And they're everywhere. You get like a bug and you have to sort it out. Unfortunately, there's only one bug today. That's question 13. Ooh, now this is interesting because I thought this would be wrong, and it was. Instead of y being -3, oh my goodness me, I totally see it. I totally see it. Incredible. I love that question. But, all right, let's just do some. Let's do some reading, actually. Why not? Okay. Okay, so I'm up to chapter 2. I'm just going to stretch my legs, and then it's only 13 pages. Okay. Chapter 2. The Garden of Live Flowers. I should see the garden far better, said Alice to herself, if I could get to the top of that hill. And here's a path that leads straight to it. At least, no, it doesn't do that, after going a few yards along the path and turning several sharp corners, but I suppose it will at last. But how curiously it twists. It's more like a corkscrew than a path. Well, this turn goes to the hill, I suppose. No, it doesn't. This goes straight back to the house. Well then, I'll try the other way. And so she did, wandering up and down and trying turn after turn, but always coming back to the house, do what she would. Indeed, once she turned a corner rather more quickly than usual. She ran against it before she could stop herself. It's no use talking about it, Alice said, looking up at the house and pretending it was arguing with her. I'm not going in again. Yet. I'm not going in again yet. I know I should have to get through the looking glass again, back into the old room, and there'd be an end of all my adventures. So, resolutely turning her back upon the house, she set out once more down the path, determined to keep straight on till she got to the hill. For a few minutes, and she was just saying, I really shall do it this time, when the path gave a sudden twist and shook itself, as she described it afterwards, and the next moment she found herself actually walking in at the door. "Oh, it's too bad," she cried. "I never saw such a house for getting in the way. Never!" However, there was the hill full in sight, so there was nothing to be done but start again. This time she came upon a large flower bed with a border of daisies and a willow tree growing in the middle. "Oh, Tiger Lily," said Alice, addressing herself to one that was waving gracefully about in the wind, "I wish you could talk." "We can talk," said the Tiger Lily, "when there's anybody worth talking to." Alice was so astonished that she couldn't speak for a minute. It quite seemed to take her breath away. At length, as the Tiger Lily only went on waving about, she spoke again in a timid voice, almost in a whisper. "And can all the flowers talk?" "As well as you can," said the Tiger Lily, and a great deal louder. "It isn't manners for us to begin, Rose, and I really was wondering when you'd speak," said I to myself. "Her face has got some sense in it, though it's not a clever one. Still, you're the right colour, and that goes a long way." "I don't care about the colour," the Tiger Lily remarked. "If only her petals curled up a little more, she'd be all right." Alice didn't like being criticised, so she began asking questions. "Aren't you sometimes frightened at being planted out here with nobody to take care of you?" "There's the tree in the middle," said the Rose. "What else is it good for?" "But what could it do if any danger came?" Alice asked. "It could bark," said the Rose. "It says bow wow," cried a daisy. "That's why its branches are called boughs." "Didn't you know that?" cried another daisy. And here they all began shouting together till the air seemed quite full of little shrill voices. "Silence, every one of you!" cried the Tiger Lily, waving itself passionately from side to side and trembling with excitement. "They know I can't get at them," it panted, bending its quivering head towards Alice, "or they wouldn't dare to do it." "Never mind," Alice said in a soothing tone, and stooping down to the daisies who were just beginning again, she whispered, "If you don't hold your tongues, I'll pick you." There was silence in a moment, and several of the pink daisies turned white. "That's right," said the Tiger Lily. "The daisies, when one speaks, they all begin together, and it's enough to make one wither to hear the way they go on." "How is it you can all talk so nicely?" Alice said, hoping to get it into a better temper by a compliment. "I've been in many gardens before, but none of the flowers could talk." "Put your hand down and feel the ground," said the Tiger Lily. "Then you'll know why." Alice did so. "It's very hard," she said, "but I don't see what that has to do with it." "In most gardens," the Tiger Lily said, "they make the beds too soft so that the flowers are always asleep." This sounded a very good reason, and Alice quite pleased to know it. "I never thought of that before," she said. "It's my opinion that you never think at all," said the Rose said in a rather severe tone. "I never saw anybody that looked stupider," Violet said so suddenly that Alice quite jumped, for it hadn't spoken before. "Hold your tongue," cried the Tiger Lily, "as if you ever saw anybody. You keep your head under the leaves and snore away there till you know no more what's going on in the world than if you were a bud." "And are there any more people in the garden besides me?" Alice said, not choosing to notice the Rose's last remark. "There's one other flower in the garden that can move about like you," said the Rose. "I wonder how you do it." "You're always wondering," said the Tiger Lily, "but she's more bushy than you are." "Is she like me?" Alice asked eagerly, for the thought crossed her mind. "There's another little girl in the garden somewhere." "Well, she has the same awkward shape as you," the Rose said, "but she's redder, and her petals are shorter, I think. They're done up close like a dahlia," said the Tiger Lily, "not tumbled about like yours." "But that's not your fault," the Rose added kindly. "You're beginning to fade, you know, and then one can't help one's petals getting a little untidy." Alice didn't like this idea at all, so, to change the subject, she asked, "Does she ever come out here?" "I dare say you'll see her soon," said the rose. She's one of the kind that has 9 spikes, you know. Where does she wear them? Alice asked with some curiosity. Why, her head, of course, the rose replied. I was wondering you hadn't got some too. I thought it was the regular rule. She's coming, cried the larkspur. I hear her footstep, thump, thump, along the gravel walk. Alice looked round eagerly and found that it was the Red Queen. She's grown a good deal, was her first remark. She had indeed. When Alice first found her in the ashes, she had been only 3 inches high, and here she was, half a head taller than Alice herself. It's the fresh air that does it, said the rose. Wonderfully fine air it is out here. I think I'll go and meet her, said Alice, for though the flowers were interesting enough, she felt that it would be far grander to have a talk with a real queen. You can't possibly do that, said the rose. I should advise you to walk the other way. This sounded nonsense to Alice, so she said nothing, but set off at once towards the Red Queen. To her surprise, she lost sight of her in a moment and found herself walking in at the front door again. A little provoked, she drew back and, after looking everywhere for the Queen, whom she spied out at last a long way off, she thought she would try the plan, this time, of walking in the opposite direction. It succeeded beautifully. She had not been walking a minute before she found herself face to face with the Red Queen and full in sight of the hill she had been so long aiming at. Where do you come from? Said the Red Queen, and where are you going? Look up, speak nicely, and don't twiddle your fingers all the time. Alice attended to all these directions and explained, as well as she could, that she had lost her way. I don't know what you mean by your way, said the Queen. All the ways about here belong to me. But why did you come out here at all? She added in a kinder tone. Curtsy while you're thinking what to say. It saves time. Alice wondered a little at this, but she was too much in awe of the Queen to disbelieve it. I'll try it when I go home, she thought to herself. The next time I'm a little late for dinner. It's time for you to answer now, the Queen said, looking at her watch. Open your mouth a little wider when you speak, and always say, Your Majesty. I only wanted to see what the garden was like, Your Majesty. That's right, said the Queen, patting her on the head, much Alice didn't like at all. Though, when you say garden, I've seen gardens compared with which this would be a wilderness. Alice didn't dare to argue the point, but went on. And I thought I'd try and find my way to the top of that hill. When you say hill, the Queen interrupted, I could show you hills in comparison with which you'd call that a valley. No, I shouldn't, said Alice, surprised into contradicting her at last. A hill can't be a valley, you know. That would be nonsense. The Red Queen shook her head. You may call it nonsense if you like, she said, but I've heard nonsense compared with which that would be as sensible as a dictionary. Alice curtsied again, as she was afraid from the Queen's tone that she was a little offended, and they walked on in silence till they got to the top of the little hill. For some minutes Alice stood without speaking, looking out in all directions over the country, and a most curious country it was. There were a number of tiny little brooks running straight across it from side to side, and the ground between was divided up into squares by a number of little green hedges that reached from brook to brook. I declare it's marked out just like a large chessboard, Alice said at last. There ought to be some men moving about somewhere, and so there are, she added in a tone of delight, and her heart began to beat quick with excitement as she went on. It's a great huge game of chess that's being played all over the world. This is the world at all, you know. Oh, what fun it is. How I wish I was one of them. I wouldn't mind being a pawn, if only I might join, though, of course, I should like to be a queen best. She glanced rather shyly at the real Queen as she said this, but her companion only smiled pleasantly and said,
That's easily managed. You can be the White Queen's pawn if you like, as Lily's too young to play, and you're in the second square to begin with. When you get to the 8th square, you'll be a queen. Just at this moment, somehow or other, they began to run. Alice never could quite make out, in thinking it over afterwards, how it was that they began. All she remembers is that they were running hand in hand, and the Queen went so fast that it was all she could do to keep up with her, and still the Queen kept crying, "Faster, faster!" But Alice felt she could not go faster, though she had no breath left to say so. The most curious part of the thing was that however fast they went, they never seemed to pass anything. "I wonder if all the things move along with us," thought poor puzzled Alice. And the Queen seemed to guess her thoughts, for she cried, "Faster! Don't try to talk." Not that Alice had any idea of doing that. She felt as if she would never be able to talk again. She was getting so much out of breath, and still the Queen cried, "Faster, faster!" and dragged her along. "Are we nearly there?" Alice managed to pant out at last. "Nearly there?" the Queen repeated. "Why, we passed it 10 minutes ago. Faster!" And they ran on for a time in silence, with the wind whistling in Alice's ears and almost blowing her hair off as her head, she fancied. "Now, now!" cried the Queen. "Faster, faster!" And they went so fast that at last they seemed to skim through the air, hardly touching the ground with their feet, till suddenly, just as Alice was getting quite exhausted, they stopped, and she found herself sitting on the ground, breathless and giddy. The Queen propped her up against a tree and said kindly, "You may rest a little now." Alice looked round her in great surprise. "Why, I do believe we've been under this tree the whole time. Everything's just as it was." "Of course it is," said the Queen. What would you have it?" "Well, in our country," said Alice, still panting a little, "you'd generally get to somewhere else if you ran very fast for a long time, as we've been doing." "A slow sort of country," said the Queen. "Now, here, you see, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that." "I'd rather not try, please," said Alice. "I'm quite content to stay here, only I am so hot and thirsty. I know what you'd like," the Queen said good naturedly, taking a little box out of her pocket. "Have a biscuit?" Alice thought it would not be civil to say no, though it wasn't at all what she wanted. So she it and ate it as well as she could, and it was very dry, and she thought she had never been so nearly choked in all her life. "While you're refreshing yourself," said the Queen, "I'll just take the measurements." And she took a ribbon out of her pocket, marked in inches, and began measuring the ground and sticking little pegs in here and there. "At the end of 2 yards," she said, putting in a peg to mark the distance, "I shall give you your directions. Have another biscuit?" "No, thank you," said Alice. "One's quite enough." "Thirst quenched, I hope," said the Queen. Alice did not know what to say to this, but luckily the Queen did not wait for an answer, but went on. "At the end of 3 yards I shall repeat them, for fear of your forgetting them. At the end of 4 I shall say bye, and at the end of 5 I shall go." She had got all the pegs put in by this time, and Alice looked on with great interest as she returned to the tree, and then began slowly walking down the row. At the 2 yard peg she faced round and said, "A pawn goes 2 squares in its first move, you know. So you'll go very quickly through the third square by railway, I should think, and you'll find yourself in the fourth square in no time. Well, that square belongs to Tweedledum and Tweedledee. The fifth is mostly water, and the sixth belongs to Humpty Dumpty. But you make no remark." I I didn't know I had to make one just then," Alice faltered out. "You should have said," the Queen went on in a tone of grave reproof. "However, it's extremely kind of you to tell me all this. However, we'll suppose it said, "The 7th square is all forest. However, one of the knights will show you the way, and in the 8th square we shall be queens together, and it's all feasting and fun." Alice got up and curtsied and sat down again. At the next peg the queen turned again, and this time she said, "Speak in French when you can't think of the English for a thing. Turn out your toes as you walk, and remember who you are." She did not wait for Alice to curtsy this time, but walked on quickly to the next peg, where she turned for a moment to say goodbye, and then hurried on to the last. How it happened Alice never knew, but exactly as she came to the last peg she was gone. Whether she vanished into the air, or whether she ran quickly into the wood, and she can run very fast, thought Alice, there was no way of guessing, but she was gone, and Alice began to remember that she was a pawn, and that it would soon be time for her to move. Okay. So let's see what's coming next. Okay, this should be the next one. Alright, brilliant. Alright, great. So, great.